Mm. So we got some news to talk about here tonight. And so, for those that don't know, our Nissan news segments, this is where we reach out and scour the internet and share an article we like regarding Nissan, Datsun, or even Infinity. Articles are sourced from official Nissan newsrooms, and from media outlets at large. So we get it from everywhere. So, Mike, you've got the first article coming up, and this is talking a little bit about um, a a mark that Nissan has just recently hit in regards to manufacturing, correct?
A very huge mark. It is very much a milestone. Something to be very, very proud of. Nissan is marking 40 years of manufacturing in the U.S. Specifically, they're talking about their first manufacturing plant in the U.S., which is built at the Smyrna, Tennessee area. A lot of times, a lot of people just call it the Smyrna plant. 40, 40 years, man. Um, what I thought about doing was just to kind of talk about a little bit of uh, some of the results that this plant has had, not only by the numbers, but also about the influence that Nissan has had in the U.S. since then, and specifically in Tennessee. Um, just to preface this, though, Miles, you and I were based out of San Antonio, which has also been a growing automotive town
Hmm.
and within the last 20 years. And I know certainly we've seen growth and very many positive things as a result of it. And the same goes for Nissan and with Tennessee. And so this article comes from the Nissan newsroom, US newsroom, talking about this plant, Smyrna plant. The announcement of the plant began in 1980. The plant was completed in 83, and I'll share a few pictures here. The first vehicle was a white Datsun 720
20.
pickup.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is really, really cool. Us being mini truck fans as it is, man, this was one of them. The very first. Um, Nissan was also the first Japanese manufacturer to build a facility in the southern US. Prior to 1983, there were other import or Japanese manufacturing plants in the U.S. However, they were all more northern based. I believe Detroit, for example, was one of them. But getting into what we know now, Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas, um, there are many southern states that have multiple automotive plants, and Nissan was the first to really set that trend, which I think is a feather in their cap. To date, there are approximately 20 million vehicles and 13 million engines that have been produced from the Smyrna plant. I've got a few other pieces of information here. This talks about the amount of investments and again these numbers that come from the Smyrna plant and also from their Deckard plant, which is also in Tennessee. Not 40 years, but it is it's still very much in use, and I imagine it reaching 40 years in the future, though. But other models: Nissan Leaf, Nissan Maxima, the Rogue, Infiniti QX60, amongst many of the vehicles that were produced out of this plant. And then again, getting back to the economy, man, Nissan has done a lot for the community and for the state since they've been involved uh, with their Smyrna plant. For example, their Nissan employees and team members have devoted over 43,000 volunteer hours. They've built 38 homes for Habitat for Humanity. There are nearly $26 million of donation to United Way, another 2 million in educational scholarships, and 36,000 pints of blood donated to the American Red Cross. That's just the tip of the iceberg of the amount of influence that Nissan has had. So uh, I just want to give props, and this very much was a celebration. I don't know if I mentioned the exact date. It was June 18th, so just 4 days ago. It was the 40th anniversary. So I think it was very much noteworthy. It is some of those type of celebrations that become they kind of get overlooked. And that's kind of what the Nissan Nerd podcast is. It's celebrating the most smallest things. Again, it's big, but it's not as popular or fashionable to celebrate these things, and that's what we do. So, um, just want to
And
bring
for
that to
those
light, man.
Yeah, no, and for those that don't know, we actually watch a lot of uh, these givebacks, if you will. And it started, I think, with us. What started around COVID time, because you and I started noticing all this around the time that Nissan changed production into making masks for people, because there was a
Yes,
huge shortage. Remember that when that occurred? And so
yes.
we always knew that Nissan was giving back, but not at the levels that it did, because I started following actually a really good Facebook group. For those that don't know, it's actually here on my phone, but it's the Nissan Smyrna, Smyrna, building more than great cars. And I started following the page primarily because it actually shows pretty much every weekend or every other weekend there is something that Nissan is doing at the Smyrna plant where they are giving back. It's a huge part of who they are and what they represent there in Tennessee, because they are such a huge footprint and they are very much now embedded in that town. But you could see them giving blood. Recently, they were doing food bank. Something we didn't notice. We had mentioned on here, but Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee. They were just recently doing that. And then they do a bunch of things for employees all the time. And here they are building more houses. And I've been watching it, and it's one of those things that actually uplifts me every morning. So when I'm like kind of starting my day, I'll usually go to that website and it just kind of makes me smile. They do a lot of good things. So if you ever want to see how Nissan um, is what they're doing in their own backyard as far as Smyrna is concerned, definitely check out that Facebook group again. Nissan Smyrna, building more than great cars.
Yes.
So I would highly recommend checking that out.
Absolutely, man. And one last thing to mention as well, this Smyrna plant, and also I believe the others, these plants are making transitions from the engine manufacturing or internal combustion engine manufacturing, and they're transitioning to what they're calling, of course, the electrified future. This is part of Nissan's Ambition 2030 plan that we've mentioned many times throughout the last few months, and many of these plants are being retrofitted. Same building, but just tons of investment in the machinery inside these factories. Always improving, always preparing for this new EV wave. There is a really good website. This is actually relatively new. Nissan is promoting this as saying, if you are curious to know more about their manufacturing operations, you can go to nissanmanufacturing.com, and I think I did have one page here I could share it, and it will give you an insight as to some of the transitions, or maybe even current operations that are happening inside multiple plants, more than just the Smyrna plant, and it really lets you know what they're doing. And it's really fun. I've been able to look at this here within the last couple days, and it's cool. Again, numbers. We're nerds, man. We're looking at the all the stats, and this is exactly what this website gives us. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool article, man. Thank you for sharing that.